and miles of fences slice across the American West. They control valuable livestock and define property boundaries. With changes in the Western economy, many of these fences now serve no purpose at all. Obsolete fences disrupt wildlife in their daily quest for food and water and block seasonal migrations. When wildlife encounter a fence, the results can be deadly, entangling ungulates in wire and fatally separating young animals from their mothers. The Jackson Hole Wildlife Foundation, a grassroots nonprofit organization in Wyoming, promotes ways for people to live compatibly with wildlife. In 1996, they began their Wildlife Friendlier fencing program. Since then, their volunteers removed or modified 175 miles of obsolete fence. This tremendous effort reduces fatalities and injuries to wildlife and opens migration corridors throughout the region.
When we have derelict fences out on the landscape, and particularly on public lands, obsolete fences that are no longer of any use to anyone, they really become a hazard for wildlife.
Fences don't change unless someone takes action. I see abandoned fences everywhere.
It's a real community challenge, and a community has to solve it. The design of this organization was that our board was to be made up of people who wanted to be involved and wanted to do something and participate.
Serving on the board, it was great to make that connection between a grassroots community organization and the Wyoming Game and Fish Department. It's the type of organization that is easy to get behind.
The reason I went on the board was so that I could learn more about wildlife, and I really bought into hands-on, on-the-ground kinds of projects.
Put yourself in the mind's eye of wildlife and look where there are natural migration paths. We all see wildlife in our neighborhood. Where are they coming from? Where are they going to? What's in the way?
You start looking at fences everywhere and you start wondering, are these really fences that can accommodate wildlife as they start moving through the area?
The first step is identifying a scientific method compliant problem, a collection of data via infrared cameras, documenting the problem occurring. Once we've identified the problem, then we take a proposed solution to a plethora of stakeholders.
Foundation works across boundaries. It works on private lands. They've done work on Forest Service and Park.
At the Jackson Hole Land Trust, we work with landowners to do conservation. The efforts to remove fence on these properties has been really a collaboration between the land trust, the landowner permitting fences to be removed, and the Jackson Hole Wildlife Foundation.
A lot of the ranchers I know are aware we're dealing with major migrations through this area. They are agreeable, in most cases, not all, to modifying fences and maintaining them so they are less dangerous to wildlife.
We used to have a fair amount of park land still that was fenced and accommodating livestock grazing permits that were grandfathered in to the park for a while under the legislation in 1950 that expanded the park. And gradually we've been able to remove most of those livestock allotments and subsequently a lot of fence. Wildlife Foundation and their volunteers have basically provided almost all the labor that's done that.
For every project out there where people show up and spend a day, doing the work, maybe a lot more work that's gone into getting the permits if it's public land or getting the permission from the landowners.
It has to be the win-win-win for everyone involved, and that requires a lot of conversations.
Greg sort of gets the site and the job, then he sends me the description, then we send it out on an email. Setup is bringing water, Gatorade, snacks and everything, and then all the tools, all the gloves, all the tools, sign-up sheets, waivers, and we try and carpool.
The fact that we can get 30 people on a weekend in one spot to remove a mile or so of fence each weekend makes a big contribution, particularly over a long period of time.
Early stages and the middle stages of this program, 1.0. Then we made a very successful seamless transition to 2.0, which involved not just removal of obstacles and hazards, but modifications of hazards that could not be removed.
Our project here today is a collaboration between a local group, the Jackson Hole Wildlife Foundation, and the National Parks Conservation Association.
Welcome to everybody. Thanks for coming out. As I said, there's a lot of competing events. Everybody could have hit the snooze button and, went and watched a wildlife film about somebody else doing conservation somewhere else. But you came out here in service to wildlife.
Today is Public Lands Day. What better way to celebrate our national park lands than being out here doing a project to benefit wildlife? Surrounding this area, you'll see herds of bison, antelope, grizzly bears frequent this area, gray wolves, and so it's a very important location within the park.
We alter fences, we make them lower so animals can jump over. 40 inches maximum, 42 absolutely at the maximum height for the top wire. We like to see a bottom wire or rail that's got space underneath for animals to scoot under. And we need that to be 16 to 18 inches so that pronghorn deer, smaller elk calves can slip under the fence.
There's a lot of things that can be done to make wildlife fencing friendlier if it's not appropriate to take it out. To make the fence more visible, we put white and black pieces of vinyl siding on there. In that case, it was not just for large mammals, but also for birds. Thought was that that would help reduce the number of bird strikes, because we did actually find, I think, 2 dead raptors.
Many projects where we've taken down fence or modified it, and then we're treated to seeing wildlife go through that area almost immediately.
In early spring and it's raining and it's cold, you see 15 volunteers show up for a project. I ask myself, why do they do this? You can see it in their eye. They want to make a difference.
Getting engaged in volunteer work, that you're actually getting things done. A little less talk, a lot more doing things. From the very first project, given the nature of the work, which was hard work, but not too hard, outdoors with a lot of like-minded people, there was no doubt from the first project that I wanted to do more of this.
The volunteers, they feel great on it. And that's the best part. They're having a good time.
We've often said that our legacy is nothing.
And the day is done and there's nothing there. That's wonderful.
Wildlife are going to be facing continuing stressors such as climate change. We know it's better not to have these hazards in their way because migration becomes even more important in the face of those kind of stressors.
There just continues to be a need for help from the community to reduce the conflicts. Animals being hit by vehicles, animals being tangled in fences, animals getting Christmas lights on their antlers.
To be able to take that extra fence that nobody really wants and see the immediate results of wildlife using those pathways for natural migration, it should be a benefit not only in Teton County, but throughout the United States.
I would hope that this film would inspire some people to replicate this effort in other areas so that the 175 miles or so that we've done here could turn into thousands of miles, throughout the country or even throughout the world. To just start it.
Call us. Call the Jackson Hole Wildlife Foundation.
Hit it. The world will be a lot better place if everybody ferociously pursued that which they're passionate about. So I'd like to thank sincerely from the bottom of my heart every volunteer has came out here in service to something greater than themselves, stewardship and perpetuation of our public lands, and most importantly our treasured wildlife. So thank you.
Thank you.